Hi everyone, I'm Chauncey Nebula, and in today's installment of the Paint All the Minis project, let's paint some Team Yankee. I recently got into Team Yankee because my friends were getting into it, and I thought, oh, this is a cool thing. You know, it's historical, it's mainly tanks and so on. I thought it'd be fun. But it's 15 millimeter. The thing about 15 millimeter is that you have this unfortunate choice to make. You can either paint it up to be super realistic with like all these tiny little details so that when you pick up the model and really look at it, it looks exactly like the thing you're trying to have it represent. But you can also go the route of, well, it's really small and the details are so tiny that I don't really want to put a lot of effort into picking out those details because realistically I'm not going to see them. Plus, with something like Team Yankee, it's a historical game, and therefore you have this question of how historically accurate do I want to be with my colors, with my shading, with my, any kind of symbols, stuff like that. And it was kind of a hard choice for me to make. What I ended up doing was I decided I'm going to use predominantly contrast paint and dry brushing because that is both going to give me the definition of the model while simultaneously making it very easy so I don't have to spend hours and hours picking out all these tiny fine little details. Now for this video we are going to be painting up the Soviet side of the kind of main two-player starter set, not the Hammerfall, which is the tiny one, but the kind of the regular two-player starter set, which has an American force and a Soviet force. And I wanted to play Soviets, so let's paint up some Soviets. Now, what I did to begin with is I just primed them all gray and then base coated them in a kind of medium layer of Basilicanum gray contrast paint. With it being contrast paint, and because these are tanks, because they don't necessarily have to be super uniform with the texture, I really did kind of do it a little more haphazardly than I might otherwise. And I think it gives you a nice base, a good kind of effect to start with. It's not super uniform. It's got some dark areas, it's got some light areas. It really does kind of give it this more worn look. Moving forward, I decided, well, you know what? I'm going to dry brush. I'm just going to go straight into dry brushing. So I took Mechanica Standard Gray and I did a pretty heavy dry brush. I really went in on the model, and if I got too much on a side panel and made kind of a smudge, it didn't really matter. But did a pretty heavy dry brush, really kind of stained the model almost. Then I went over it again with Administratum Gray, which is a layer paint from Citadel, and I did this one very light. I really just wanted to get the rays, just a very light dry brush. In some areas it maybe ends up being a little bit heavier than others, but doing this one much lighter than the Mechanica Standard Gray dry brush gives you this really nice gradient of, contrast, then kind of the stain and preliminary dry brush of the Mechanica Standard Gray, moving up towards the very light highlights of Administratum Gray. From there, I wanted to really pick out a little bit of scraping, make it look like these are pieces of metal, these are war machines. They're gonna not necessarily be pristine. So I took some lead belcher and I did a very uneven dry brush. I paid very special attention to the wheels. I dry brushed the wheels very heavily to make it look like they've been through a lot, and then did some on the treads as well. I also made sure to really pick out the end of the barrel of the tank, the machine guns on top, etc. And that's really it. You can just leave it there. Now, of course, with Team Yankee, you do have to have tank commanders, specifically leaders for formations and units. So I didn't film me doing this because I actually had to use this lovely magnifying light that I just got. I highly recommend these to painters because for these really tiny details, especially if you're working a lot with 15 millimeter, it really does save your eyes. What I did was pretty simple. I did the bodies in cold gray, Vallejo Game Color cold gray. Did the hats and so on in. It's actually German Field Gray World War II. This is a Vallejo model color. It's I always get the order of the words mixed up. As you guys know, I'm terrible with remembering paint names. And then for the face, I did Bugman's Glow. For the face, I did Bugman's Glow. It just very simple, very easy. And then the clothing, I did a wash in Athonian Camo Shade from Citadel, and then for the face, I did Reclin Flesh Shade. And that's kind of as much as I really wanted to do with the commanders because they're so small that I didn't even want to try to do highlights and stuff. Just make it very small, a little bit more muted colors, and you're good. And that's really it. You can paint up tanks for Team Yankee using this scheme very quickly. The majority of the time is just waiting for the contrast paint to dry because contrast paint takes a while to dry. If you're like me, you've got tons of stuff to paint. And while I would love to lovingly go through historical photographs of Soviet tanks and see exactly what color schemes they were using and exactly what thing was what color, what the tone was like, what the uniforms were like, I would love to have the time to do that, but I don't because I'm like a lot of you guys. I have stuff to do. I have stuff to do in real life that's important. And then I have my miniature wargaming hobby. And that stuff can't really override the real world stuff. So I need to get mods done. And if I can make it easy on myself, I mean I'm not going to say that I'm lazy, but might be slightly lazy. So yeah, in the future, I'm going to be doing some other Team Yankee stuff. I'm going to paint up some Soviet Hinds and some Frogfoots. Probably do a video on those just because those I'm going to do slightly differently than the tanks. I'm going to actually put camo on them. No, camo on the top and like sky tone on the bottom to make them look more realistic. Do you like Team Yankee? Do you like tanks? Do you like taking the easy road in miniature painting? If you like those things, or if you don't, let me know down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please consider leaving a like and hitting that subscribe button and hitting that bell icon to get notifications when a new video goes live. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bullseye. Because the planes go zoom and the tanks go burr and the boats make splashing noises. I don't know. Something like that.